I was like, let me go.
Sorry about that.
I feel like I really need to get better at that because I have a hard time saying no. It's like my buyers are sending like 6 or 7 places to see in a day. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, 3 of these don't. Why are we building?
100%.
And I need to get better at that. So I'm like, I don't want to upset them, but I'm like, I don't want to waste your time.
Yep. And that's the number one thing I'd say to my buyers is I don't want to waste your time and I don't want you wasting my time. Let's treat that fairly. So if they're sending me 5, 10 homes, can we go see all these on Saturday? Huh. Why don't you pick out your top 1 or 2 and I'm gonna pick out 1 or 2 and then we're gonna see those. I will make up appointments. I'm busy. I got something at noon. Yeah. I'm busy. If my clients don't know that I'm busy, I'm not doing a good enough job. Because one of my biggest things is if you bring a plumber over and they say I can do all the work starting today, they're not busy. And if they're not busy, why aren't they busy? Same thing in real estate. I'm a professional. I've got numerous clients, and tomorrow I'm going to be from them from 6 to 9 or whatever it may be. Set your hours, set your time. And if it's not in your time, say have an appointment. I'm busy at that moment. Can you do Thursday at 2 or Friday at 1, whatever it may be? The biggest thing that does is it drives the buyer to know that they need to be alert of my time. So if there is that one house that they want to go see, they're not sending me 5 or 10. They're going to say, I see that one and I want to go see that one house. So many times now, I'm only showing 1 or 2 homes. So review the MLS, read the broker remarks. 90% of the time, it's nothing. And it's just COVID restrictions or whatever it may be. Take off your shoes, leave a card. Every now and then, it's going to say, seller is moving to Texas and it's going to be gone October 1st. That's the chunk of thing that you need to know. Then you can relay it to your client. I saw this in the MLS, they're going to be gone October 1st. Does that fit your criteria or whatever it may be? Review it before showing. Then schedule a showing. Show the home and then contact the agent. Sometimes it's a very busy listing. I will have no problem contacting the listing agent first, going, should we even bother? My client sent me a property on a Monday and it's been on the market all weekend. Most likely they're going to be reviewing offers that day. So is there even a shot at me getting it? Use your best judgment as you're scheduling those, but contact the agent and know that if it's a busy listing, that listing agent is getting bombarded with phone calls. So be clear, be concise, have 3 or 4 questions that you can default to, ask those questions and let them go. Sometimes the listing agent won't answer their call. You really can't do anything about that. There are some agents who prefer to treat this as a transaction, not a career. So you can't win them all. However, if you can build rapport with that agent in the beginning, before you even submit an offer, you have a much, much higher chance at getting that deal under contract. We were doing one the other day with a client. I knew the real estate agent from a class in passing, and she literally printed out every one of the offers and read the contracts to me of all of the other ones. I've never had that happen before. But it's because I made that phone call and I started asking her what's going on. And she's like, well, I've got one offer at 250 with an escalation clause. I've got one offer here with, well, and she just started reading it. So I just said, well, what if I came in at 352? She said, no, I'd love that. I beat him up by pennies because I made that phone call. Sometimes that phone call is all you need to get that offer accepted. And well, this has nothing to do with this class. However, when I first started, I chose not to network with other real estate agents thinking this is my competition. It's not. This is your future. Next person on the other end of the table. And if you could be buddy-buddy with that person, your deal is going to go a whole lot smoother. So I go to the young professional networking events for the YPN, for the Board of Realtors. I get involved because you never know who you're going to become friends with. That's going to be on the other side of that table. It's going to make everything a lot better for you. Sorry, I lost my train of thought where I was. All right, so we've contacted the agent. They've told you how to write the offer, something's what they're looking for. And then you go through and you start doing a CMA on the property. Just because they have it listed at 350 does not mean it's worth 350. They could have lowballed the price and it's really worth 375 or 400. They could have overpriced the property and it's really worth 325. Know exactly what those homes are worth. give your client the ballpark. It's not worth 350. It's probably worth 350 to 370. Where do you want to go from there? Do you feel comfortable going higher? Sometimes they're only going to be at the max at 350, and if it's worth 370, it's like, maybe we should find a new home. Do all of that before you submit the offer, because writing the offer takes the longest time, dealing with the whole follow-up and all that. If you can get that property off the table, maybe they were going between two homes, and that one's at the highest part of that price, the other one's not. Work through that, but make sure you're doing a market analysis on it. And then once again, contact the lender. Because if it's at the top of their price point and it's got high taxes and it's got an HOA, that may not work. They may not qualify. Always have the conversation with the lender going, all right, they're qualified to 400, but they're going by 350. So at least you know that there's some wiggle room, stuff like that. But I always ask, what's the highest? What's that ceiling where you're going to go, whoa, stop. Because I want to know where that is, because if my client's getting crazy, we've had a couple that are just like, escalation clause, appraisal gap, whatever we can do. And I'm talking to the lender, they're like, they don't have that money. The buyer doesn't know that. I'm trying to educate them as best I can, but still they get wrapped up in it. They hear something on YouTube or on the news saying escalation clauses are it. And I'm sitting there, whoa, this property doesn't need that. You need to talk about the different things that you could be throwing in with your clients. So CMA, contact the lender. Now we're writing the offer. I am not here to teach you how to write an offer. There's a YouTube video. There's a whole bunch of stuff online that'll teach you how to write an offer. The one thing I do want to talk to you about is the Damian Cox Clause Manual. Are you all familiar with that? The Damian Cox Clause Manual. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, he has a clause manual. Oh, hey, technology works. We have a little packet over there if you want to grab one. Yep. Hey, don't worry about my tabs. All right, so this is Damian Cox's clause manual. It is, I don't know how many pages. It's a lot of pages, but it goes into great depths of everything that you can copy and paste into a contract. Please, for the love of God, never make something up. If you wing it, you are going to get sued. Think of it that way. So if somebody says, I want to put in an appraisal gap of $5,000, you're not just going to type in appraisal gap of $5,000. When you're writing in contracts, you need to be using legal jargon that nobody understands, because that's the only way lawyers do things. So go through this in great depth. This is in the Facebook documents that's on command. I can send you a copy, and this gets updated all the time. The biggest thing, like the appraisal gap or broom clean. I'm just going to go through the contract, but also know that there's stuff in the exclusive right to buy. There's exclusive right to sell. Once again, there's just a lot of stuff in here. You should be going through this and know what's in here. How to get an offer and a backup. I put broom clean on every single one of my offers because I am sick and tired of a seller leaving trash on the property or not picking up after their dog before they leave. This here holds them liable for all of that stuff. Also, so here is the escalation clause, fill in the blanks. And then we've got 3 different ones for the appraisal. So no one. So this one here says buyer price reduction. Long story short, if it's listed at 350 and we offer 370 with a 5,000 appraisal gap, if it comes in at 350, we're dropping the price to 350, and then my client's bringing $5,000. Same thing goes with this one here. Buyer brings some cash price reduction, slightly different than the last one. This is the one I use most of the time because of this one, last sentence. The parties agree to execute any amend extend document required by the lender or title company to make this happen. So in the contract, how many different ways does a seller have? How many different ways does a seller have to terminate a contract? How many different ways can a seller terminate a contract once they're under contract? Not at all. They agree to sell the house. They're selling the house. How many ways does a buyer have to back out? Exactly. I can terminate because I don't like the color of that tile or the chip in the paint. The buyer can back out. So treat that kind of appropriately here. When it comes to an appraisal, if the appraisal comes in low and I don't have an appraisal gap on here, the appraisal comes in low, the seller says, you agree to come at that price, you bring the cash. If it's a $10,000 gap, I'll see you at the closing table with the $10,000 check. If you put in something like this and the seller signs it, that seller has just removed every chance of saying, no, thank you. So as a buyer or a buyer's agent, this is gold. Oh my God, I want to copy and paste this and everything. Because I am limiting so much issues, so many problems. The biggest one I want to make sure you all know, this warning is not to be put in the contract. This warning is for you when copying and pasting to make sure that you're talking to that lender first. Don't put this in there. And we got another one, seller, low appraisal, just bring cash. If it's a $5,000 difference and you only have 1,000, the buyer better bring more cash. Read through these, know what's in them. There's a whole lot more. I'm not going to cover it. Just know, you should know that.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So it should be under files in the downtown?
Yep, look up. Yep, it should be in the KW downtown. It should just be contract clause manual. Okay, if you want to grab a packet, we got it over there. Okay, so make sure that you're writing the contract to fit your terms. You are representing the buyer, but you're writing that offer to get accepted by the seller. So there are certain things that you're going to go through, and you're not just going to check seller pays on everything. At least I wouldn't advise it. There are certain times that the buyer should be paying for certain things. What are the two big ones that buyers pay out of pocket? Appraisal, inspection and appraisal. If you wanted to go through certain parts of the contract, there are other parts where the seller or buyer can pay. When it comes to the OEC, the title insurance, typically that's a seller pay. Sometimes I've reviewed offers and the buyer's going to split those. And the seller looks at it going, that's an $1,100 gap there. We're going to accept that one just because of that. I'm not saying do that on every one of them. However, if that's the house and there's a bunch of competition on it, that might be a good checkbox. Or closing costs. The closing cost checkbox is for $350 or $380, $400, whatever it may be that title company's paying. If it's a $200 difference, instead of saying buyer and seller willing to split that, buyer's going to pay it, that might be your winning difference. But don't just check that box and expect your buyer to pay for it. It's a 19-page contract and you're supposed to be there for your buyer's needs. You're there as a fiduciary. Talk to your buyer about that kind of stuff before you just check your box. Communication at this point is the most important. Make sure that you guys are at least having conversations with your clients about what's going on. Cool. If you can't find the clause manual or you need help finding something else, we'll talk about that later. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, that might actually need to be added.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I found it, but it's used for
That's the most, yeah, that's the most recent one.
It's in our foundational coaching.
Oh, foundational coaching?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So, oh, I don't know why I shared my screen here. Let's go back. Sorry. Screen to something different. All right. Writing the offer, discussing terms. You've done that. You've written the offer the way it should be. Cool. From there, you are going to be submitting the offer. The biggest mistake I see people doing is they don't send the email correctly or properly. When I'm sending an email to the seller with the offer attached, I am writing it assuming that they're just going to hit forward to the seller. So it has got to be nice. I have to have a templated email that's going to discuss the offer, myself, the lender, and maybe a little bit about the buyers. You're no longer allowed to write buyer love letters anymore. You all clear on that? Not supposed to do it. It's against fair housing if you say it's a nice family and next thing you know, they accept it because they have a family, or it's a single guy and they want a family. Don't do it. What I like to do is I come up with little writing offer templates. So I've written a couple. Buyer, as far as an investor, have a love letter because I used to write love letters. Investor, solo male, solo female, and then 2 people. The only reason I do that is because his, hers, she, he, they, rather than me going through and trying to rewrite that every single time, I just did it all once, saved it into a file, and I never have to worry about it again. So if I have a married couple, I'm just going to come into here to my offer document, copy and paste this entire thing, and then go through and update the offer. So it's a little thing about me or about the client. Buyer's been looking a while now. Absolutely love this home. I write that on every single one because most of the time it's true, or else they wouldn't be writing the offer. I always talk about some sort of certainty. We've been looking for a while now. I always attach the offer. If the lender hasn't sent me the lender letter yet, I will say I will follow up. If they sent it to me, I'm attaching it right in there too, saying offer and lender letter attached. It looks so much better if it's one. So if you can get that lender letter first, do it. That's why you want to contact that lender sooner than later. Discuss the offer. If there's going to be any contingencies, any appraisal gaps, any escalation clauses, whatever it may be, put it in here. And I always put in this here. We'll be quick with an inspection and only focus on anything that might be of health and safety. That's important. Once again, talk to your client about that. One of the biggest things in this thing is, what if a client wants to put in inspection items on the offer? Make sure that you're having that conversation with your client at the buyer presentation so that they know what to expect when you're writing that offer as well. Even if you have not sold a single house, come up with some way to brag about yourself. Anything. Brag about the office. Our office is #1 right now. We are crushing it as an office. We've sold billions of dollars of real estate. We've won awards. Brag about the office until you have your own things to brag about. Brag about yourself a little bit. Don't do a whole lot. And then brag about the lender. And once again, all I'm doing is copying and pasting or getting rid of that name and putting in the real lender's address and then saying he or she has closed several deals for me in the past. It's going to be confident that they're going to get us under contract quick. Make sure that you were putting in something to where the seller's reading it going, I feel confident in that agent. I feel confident in that buyer. Because that's your best shot at your sales pitch to the seller and why they need to accept your offer. It is embarrassing to know how many agents are just reviewing the contract with the person and just saying, here's the offer. It was $450, and they just signed the contract. Be the professional one, know what's in those contracts, especially if you're the one writing it. Templates are awesome, but also make sure that you're not just templating everything. Any questions about submitting an offer or anything up until now? Cool. After you submit the offer, follow up. That's it. If you put in a date of tomorrow at noon to respond back, and it's 12:01 and they haven't responded, if you're not communicating with that seller, you have no idea what's going on. They just blew you off. What if that seller got injured? What if they got into an accident? What if they just got busy that day and they're not going to be able to get it till tonight? What happens if they try to counter you or accept your offer at 12:01? It's past your acceptance deadline. What happens? I like to think of it like tennis. I hit the ball into your court. You're supposed to hit it back. If it's 12:01, this goes back to our beginning days. Our contract is considered voidable. It's not void. If they accept it back or they send you a counter, if the buyer still wants it, you're good. I've had to coach so many other agents through that going, it's voidable. Don't worry about it. Just send us that counter. And a lot of agents will call you back going, hey, I noticed 1 or 2 little mistakes in here. Can you correct that and resend us an offer? No. Send me a counter or we'll amend it later. Because if they're going to send us the counter, they can only counter one person at a time. So try to get the counter as quick as you can from that seller. Sometimes the terms are not going to be perfect, as you wrote in there. Sometimes they're going to read that appraisal clause and go, what do you mean by that last sentence? Can you send us a new one? No. Send us a counter, revise it, or delete it entirely. We'll figure out something after the fact. All I want is that counter. Or just accept it and figure it out later. So follow up. What happens if your buyer says, house is just on the market, let's submit an offer 5,000 below asking price? Does anybody have a good script yet? When a buyer says, that thing's on the market, I want a lowball. Okay, here's what I always tell people. If it's on the market for a week or less, plan on probably going over asking price. If it's that competitive, you're going to submit an offer, more likely than not, it's going to get into a bidding. If it's been on the market for 2 weeks-ish, plan on submitting an offer at or below asking price. 2 weeks, if you listen to Megan Alley talk, is that window where people start taking a price reduction. Think of that out there. Just put it out there with your client and then do a CMA on the property and let them know your price. If it's been on the market for 2 weeks, probably overpriced or something's wrong. And then if it's been on the market for 1 month, I always do this. Now we negotiate. Sellers love that. Some of my clients, buyers love that. Some of my clients don't want even to see a property until it's been on the market for 2 weeks because they want to feel like they're getting a good deal. So I'll set that up on the search. Don't send them anything until it's been on the market for 2 weeks. If that's what works, but also make sure that your client understands when there's competition, lowballing a property is not going to be the best option. So make sure you know you feel confident in your pricing. Any questions about the buyer side? Cool. Let's talk about the same exact stuff, but on the seller side. Okay. First and foremost, what's the first thing you need to be a seller agent? What's the one document you need to type?
Exclusive right to sell.
Exclusive right to sell. If you have a house that's on the market and you don't have that, you're in so much trouble. Make sure that you have that document. Now, the cool thing I like about the seller side is that you have the ability to put it all out there before anybody even sees the property. Your number one job as the seller's agent is to sell the house. So much of what you're going to be doing is solely on the MLS. You better have good photos. You better have a walkthrough. I put a walkthrough on every property. I don't care if it's a 1-bedroom condo. I'm still going to do a walkthrough because it just sells the house a lot easier. But you have the public remarks and you have the broker remarks. Utilize them. This is your chance at manipulating the market ahead of time. So I go in and I do a walk score, talk about the walk score. I look about any other restaurants or grocery stores I can, and I'm putting the fluff out there on the the public remarks. But then on the broker remarks, this is your time to tell the other agent, how do you want that offer drafted? Because if my sellers still have to turn around and buy a home, they're pre-qualified, but we haven't found any. A 30-day close with a 30-day possession is not going to be okay. I'm going to need more time. I'm going to need a 30 to 45-day close with maybe a 30-day post-closing occupancy. Put that in the MLS because it is so imperative. Because if I've got a seller that just went under contract and they have to go in a couple, I can't also find another property that needs a 60-day post-closing. You need to have that timeline figured out when you have a seller. If they're moving out of state, so long, farewell, I'll sell your house. That's a totally different story. But if they have to sell and buy, you are now like this puppet master who is supposed to have everything taken care of ahead of the fact to make sure that you get to closing on time and the seller isn't homeless. That should be your biggest concern when you are working as a listing agent is, how do I make sure my clients aren't homeless? And when you're accepting an offer and then also writing an offer for that same client, you better have that timeline figured out ahead of time so that you're not struggling 20, 30 days down the road and realizing, oh my God, my client's about to be homeless. So always keep that in mind. And then utilizing those broker remarks is just going to save you time. Because if all I put in the broker remarks is highest and best, COVID, anything with COVID, just take your shoes off. I'm going to get so many phone calls. My phone is going to blow up from just people going, tell me about your client, walk me through it, whatever. So listing the home, making sure that you got good remarks. And then the first thing you're going to be doing is receiving all those phone calls. Whether you have good stuff in the MLS or not, I expect a call from every person that's submitting an offer. If I don't get a phone call, it's a little check in their box going, man, strike one. I expect that phone call, and then I need to have something to turn around and tell those people without divulging too much information about my seller. When you are the buyer, you ask whatever question you can come up with. Tell them about your sellers. What's their motivation for moving? Why are they doing this? Because it's not my job as a buyer's agent to ask those, to not divulge that information. It's the seller's job to know when to shut up, but also get enough going to get that offer. So just be very careful when you're talking. But that right there is typically the biggest time people get in trouble, because a buyer may ask, well, tell me about the electric line there. And you may not know it, or tell me about whatever. Tell me about the inspection report that they did 5 years ago when they bought the home. You got to be able to go, I don't have that information. I'll follow up with you. Know when to say, I don't know, and I'll follow up, and just shut up. So most of the time, it is just that me saying, here's how I want you to structure the offer to make yours more appealing to the seller. That's all I'm trying to focus on. The seller has to buy a home. I need a 60-day post-closing occupancy. We may not take the 60 days, but I need them. Even if I get my client under contract the very next day, we at least have a post-closing that's going to offset if something goes wrong. In this market, it's important to try to at least negotiate some sort of post-closing for your sellers, but it's a fine line. My biggest fear is, like I said, making my clients homeless. I don't want that to happen. So just be careful. Negotiate, I feel like, should be on every one of these check boxes, not just one box. At all times you're negotiating, just make sure that you're representing your buyers or your seller's needs. Then we receive offers. Once again, don't be that agent who prints off the contract and then just says, here you go, seller, here's an offer. You should have a clear understanding of exactly what's going on in that contract. How do you do that when you have 40 offers in hand? You have to present every offer to your seller, even if it's a bad offer, even if it's an offer after you guys went under contract. You need to present everything. The best way I have been able to do it is using a multiple offer spreadsheet. So I've created a spreadsheet, and then every time I have a listing, I create a Google Drive folder, and I put in every offer and then every lender letter. If there's a post-closing occupancy involved, I'm going to include all of it. I put it all into this folder. One of the biggest reasons I started downloading these and uploading them is because what if a buyer decides to edit that contract or change it in any way? If they remove it or edit it, it removes it from my viewing on DocuSign or CTM or whatever it may be. So if you get an offer, download it, even if it's in your download folder or into your whatever. I like sending it here because then if the buyer is a high C personality and they want to review everything line by line, they've got all the information here. Then I created this multiple offer spreadsheet. Now, just for this namesake, I blocked out the agent's contact and the buyers there. Just typically I have it all open there. Then I go in here, have I received lender letters? Have I received post-closing? Have I received lead-based paint? And then I go into the contract. And this is all going to be dates and deadlines. When is everything happening? If it's good or bad, I'll go through and I'll do green or red just so the buyer kind of the seller understands what's happening. And then I go into the purchase price, lay it all out there. I'm just copying and pasting it over from it. Maybe not copying, but you guys get it. I'm just going line by line and just putting it in. On the contract reference, that's what I'm looking for. So when I'm going through and reviewing these contracts, I'm not really trying to wrap my head around the entire offer right now. I'm just going through just checking boxes, filling it all in. Then you go down to the additional provisions. What did they put in there? I'm trying to read it and then spit it back into layman's terms so that the seller understands without me having to copy and paste. Is there an escalation clause? Is there a post-closing? This one here didn't have a post-closing. That was a big hindrance for them. And then I always put in here lender. Do I have lender contact information? Some lenders will send you a pre-approval letter without any lender contact information on it. Read them. You got to look through that lender letter too. And then I call every one of these lenders. and I grill them. There's so many different things that you can ask the lender. Don't ask them for the buyer's credit score or how much money they have in their bank account. However, if they're putting in there that there's a $10,000 appraisal gap, I'd better know that they have an extra 10 grand on top of the 5% for the 10% that they're putting down. Those are the questions that you need to be hounding that lender for. And then if I don't get a call from the lender or they didn't answer the phone, I'm calling that agent, letting him know your offer is now in last place because I have not heard from your lender. Flat out. Now, one thing I forgot to put in the buyer side, I have my lender call every single offer. When I'm sending the lender the information about the house, I put in the property, the price, taxes, HOA, that kind of information. And at the bottom, copy and paste agent's contact information. When I'm submitting the offer, I'm going to tell you now is the time to call. And they pick up the phone and they call that agent because I want that agent to know I called them and then right after the fact, the lender called because it's going to be like a double whammy. Same thing goes on this side here. If I haven't contacted their lender and I haven't heard from him, I don't know anything about the finances. I don't know what they're up to. So just like I said, it's a double-edged sword in this business as far as this offer is concerned, but be very picky. And then notes, anything that's going on. I have added a net sheet to the bottom of these offers or the multiple offer spreadsheet, just because it's a lot easier to talk about how much will this house make or this offer make me if I accept this one or the other one. This one here was the highest priced, but if you go back up here, there was no move out, no post-closing occupancy. So I'm pretty sure my client accepted another offer. I'm pretty sure it was that one. I'm not sure, but highest offer isn't always the best offer. So when I'm negotiating this transaction here, we needed to find another house. I needed to get them under contract and go through an inspection before I did anything with this house, the listing. So my whole thing was drafted around how can we get a high price, maybe an escalation clause, but then also a good closing date with a good possession date. So yeah, that's mainly what I'm doing. This multiple offer spreadsheet is going to save you so much time when it comes to reviewing. Yeah.
Is that tied to your contract?
No, this is,
You know what I mean? Like if you had those cells tied in where they are in the actual contract itself.
and no, because everything that I start with is a PDF.
Got it.
Yeah, so every time I'm going and filling it out, it takes time.
Okay.
But if you're getting paid $15,000, and this is the most important thing, this, if anything, is the best time to be taking your time going through and filling it out.
Got it. Are
So-
you pulling these from the CTME and then pulling them into Google Drive, or are you doing it from some other source?
Either from CTM or from my Google, because a lot of the times the Gmail, they'll be just emailing me the contract. If it's just a PDF, I'll just take it out of there. The hardest part when you're a listing agent, you've got a house that is like hot, all the different ways are coming in. And then did I talk to that agent? Did I talk to that lender? Because if you're getting bombarded 20, 30 phone calls in an afternoon, you got to make sure that you're diligent on who's calling you, how they're, are you saying the same thing to all of them?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, you're failing as an agent. Every buyer should have the same opportunity to submit on your property. So that's why it's so important to know your seller's needs before, just so that you can regurgitate the same message over and over and over again and make sure your seller's okay with it too.
If someone is a cash offer, you were talking about like verifying their phone, how do you verify that?
I want a screenshot from your bank account, or I want a letter from your bank saying that you have that money. Getting a letter from the bank is a little bit harder. A lot of the times, if they just take a screenshot of their bank statement or something, that's enough for me.
Have you had cash offers like turn around at the last minute after it's been accepted to actually work on it alone? Does that actually happen?
No, that's changing the terms of the contract to the point where I would say no to. If they were to switch from conventional to FHA to save them money, something, that might be okay. But if I accepted a cash offer, it had better be a cash offer. The thing that you're going to probably get through a lot is they're pulling the funds from your retirement account or somewhere that may not be easily acceptable when it comes to accessible of that money.
Not very liquid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need to have something from a financial advisor that says they're going to be able to have the money out by this time. Because we can't just leave that up to fate. And I would much rather dive into that now than try to negotiate that now 3 weeks. It's so much easier just to get it all on the table. And same thing goes with the post-closing occupancy. Even if you discussed it, if you don't have the post-closing occupancy written down and signed the day you guys go into contract, I guarantee you it will be an issue. The amount of times I've not done that, so I'm speaking from experience, it will come back and will bite you hard. Because your seller thinks it's a free rent back, your buyer is expecting them to get paid. Is there a security deposit? Who's paying what? All the other stuff. Doesn't mean anything now when you're dealing with getting $10,000 over asking price. Everybody's excited. But once everything settles, you've gone through the inspection, maybe the appraisal came in low. Once things have happened, it's not the best transaction. Now all of a sudden everyone's coming up going, it's time to leave it. Now our rent's 10 grand, not 2 grand, whatever it may be. So just get it in writing, get it out of the way now. Fill out your spreadsheet, talk it through with your client. A lot of the times I will send this folder to my client and say, when you have a time to look it over, call me after, we'll talk about it. So it gives them a chance to get familiar with all of this. One amazing thing I would highly recommend doing is make a video of you talking about the contract. Do it on a Zoom or Google's video recording, whatever. But if you can talk your way through submitting an offer, then when your client calls you at 9 o'clock at night after reviewing the third offer going, what does 2.7.3 mean to you? If you can just go through and record a video going, all right, now this paragraph talks about well rights. This here is talked about dates and deadlines. Let's talk about some of the big ones there. And if you can just kind of lay the foundation for your client in a video so that when you send them the contracts to review, they can then look at this other video to walk them through the offers. Same thing goes on the buyer side. First time home buyer, they're going to be reading that 19-page contract with like big old deer in the headlight eyes. If you can send them a video just saying, hey, everything's fine, just go through this and scroll. This is what it all means. It'll make you look so much more professional, and it will then decrease the amount of calls that you are going to be getting from your client. It's an option if you're interested, and it's free. It's easy to do. Okay. So then you review all the offers with your client. You pull this offer spreadsheet through, and you're walking them through everything. All right, so this one here, they waived this and this. This one over here, they did this and the other thing. Every time I see anything in 10.6.1.2, I copy and paste it over here. And then I talk to my clients going, do you have all warranties, records, paperwork, work completed, any current service contracts or surveys? Most of the time it's going to be any and all receipts sellers made on the property. And it's just like, dear God, you've owned this home for 10 years. Do you have every receipt that you had every time you went to Home Depot? Most of the time, I will counter this back and just put none. This is not the part in the contract where you put in all that information. That's due diligence. Make sure that you're putting that in the due diligence area, but more importantly, making sure that your client knows what they're about to sign. From here, you structure the counteroffer. Plain and simple. The counteroffer, you fix anything you don't like. And just remember that you can only counteroffer one offer at a time. And when you submit a counteroffer and you put that hard time in there, tomorrow at 5 or tomorrow at 9 a.m., that is a hard line. If they sign that at 9:01, you either need to go back and redo it, you need to renegotiate, whatever. Most of the time, if they're taking that long to sign a counteroffer, there's something else going on. So that is that. And then from there, you send the counteroffer. They either accept it or they come back and we renegotiate. And then buyer submits a new offer or a new counteroffer. You can go back and forth with counters all day. However, it gets to the point where just send a new offer. It's a lot easier just to clear it up that. So that is both sides, according to my opinion. Does anybody have any questions on that?
It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot.
Especially if you haven't done the check.
Mhm.
So I feel like a fire hose a little.
It is, it's a lot. And that's why I want to make sure that you all get the multiple offer spreadsheet. You all get Damian Cox's clause manual, because every single time it's different. Every story is different. And so many times it's just like, well, I need this or that, whatever it may be. And it's your job to make sure all that happens. And a lot of it is just, how was the contract written? And for me to say, I'm not going to teach you how to write a contract today, it's a little bit harder for me than just to say, well, just do that, do this. But the videos are really in depth on that. And so much of the contract, I just would skip over for you guys. But I just feel like those are the best ways to represent your client the best, and just at all times make sure that you know who you're representing, because this doesn't really help you understand which side you're on. And so much of our job is, what side of the coin are we on today, or this phone call, because my seller's about to turn into a buyer, and I'm going to do both sides about that and try to get the best case scenario to everybody. At the end of the day, no seller ever wants to fix their home or repair their home, and no buyer wants to overpay for the property, and they want to make sure that they're getting everything fixed. How do you find that middle ground when you are always on one side or the other of the coin? So that's the fun part of my job. I like it, but it's also stressful and frustrating. So be ready. But when you're doing 10 or 11 of these a month, and you got to go hot and cold real quick on who you're talking to and how you're negotiating that, but make sure you're doing it right. I read through all of this already. I just want to make sure that I'm not skipping anything. There is a preparation checklist. If you wanted to go in and download that, that is all on the Ignite page. You're welcome to go through. A couple of questions I was supposed to ask you. We've kind of already covered them. Now, you have the ability to make an offer in command. I don't know how to do it. If you want to do that, talk to Stephen DeLisio or watch one of the videos that he has. I use CTM along with a lot of other people. It is not the easiest thing to use, but it does work really well. Cover letter template. That was the email that I saved in the Google Drive. As far as objections. So one of the things I would like to do, people on Zoom, I'm sorry, this is a lot harder for you. Let's play. Let's have a little fun with role play real quick. You're the buyer, you're the seller, and then flip. Make up a buyer, make up a seller scenario, and just talk to each other. Because that's the number one way you're going to get in trouble, is by oversharing or not saying something right. So just make up a client, and then let's just go around a couple of times. Talk it over with a partner and just feel each other out. Figure out what's the best way to write this offer. So let's spend a couple of minutes, partner up. If you wouldn't mind joining one of the groups, and then we'll go from there. People online.
I'm kind of literally right now, in real time.
Sweet. Talk it through. Let's go over that real quick. Yeah. Spend a couple of minutes. We'll go.
I'm Jeff. So.
I work
Yep. You were both agents talking to each other over the phone about your buyer wanting to spend an offer, and you're the one selling that house, or vice versa.
I don't even know what the match is.
So you're on the buyer side?
He's the buyer side.
Okay. It's your job to dig, and it's your job just to make up a story about yourself. Is your buyer going, or your seller going out of state or buying a home?
Staying.
So they need to buy a home. Talk about that. They're not under contract. We're shopping around, but that kind of stuff.
So that's just.
It's all right. You need time. You need a quick inspection, but a longer closing maybe a 45-day closing rather than 30. Or you need a post-closing occupancy with as cheap a rent as possible, something like that.
That's all.
It's crazy.
So-
Also, sorry not to throw more out there, is there competition? Because if there's no competition and you're begging for an offer, that's one thing. If it's like multiple offers, everything's on fire, bring your highest and best kind of stuff. Throw a couple out there that might change things for you.
So,
These checklists would be good tools.
Yep, absolutely.
How do you start?
Those checklists are going to mainly be, kind of what I was saying, CMA, call the lender, those kind of things. As far as questions, I've never seen anything like questions on that with asset party. Most of it is just me digging, trying to figure out what the seller's procuring, why are they selling, what are they doing, where are they headed? Because that can help too, like the sellers are moving out of state, maybe.
And so this is like, that's what we did. And on my turn one, this is like. Are you almost done?
Sure.
So.
Want to close? Yeah, 10%.
You said the offer. Do you have the check? Very good. How soon? Evidence of that stuff. Screenshots. When were you wanting to close?
October 31st.
Right, I guess what, 45 days?
Yes, sir.
There's going to be probably, probably 60 days out, and I'm just out of the house.
Sure.
It's crazy. I'm just saying, like,
Sure, I'll run that by my clients. I'm sure it's okay. I see it.
Literally, I'm like, I couldn't.
I guess it's here.
So that's the first one. I mean, really, and like, that's what happened in this market.
So, yeah, I think, chapter, for the office. Can you tell me a little bit more about what it implies? Why does it listing price is $300? Sorry, listing price is $285.
On the market for flat editions. There's some issues on this side.
What are exactly the issues that you're finding?
Well, actually, kitchen. Doesn't really stay. We feel it's listing prices, we just compared to all the other.
Real quick, I just want to throw something out. When you are making that call and you see that the price is higher than it should, I always go, I'm really trying hard to find how you guys found that listing price. Do you have any specific comps that you're using to get there? Because everything I'm looking at is a little lower. Something like that, put it back on the seller going, you priced it there. Can you justify that to me? If you can't justify it to me, I'm not gonna be able to justify it to the appraisal. Just, if it's overpriced, I want you to know that I think it's overpriced. Why did you price it that way? And I always ask that question, just like,
So they just put it back in, put the ball back in their court.
as a buyer's agent, your one whole thing is to ask a question and put everything back into that quote. And then you just sit back and shut up. So I just noticed it's a little higher than some of the other comps that I was looking at. How'd you get? Or yes, I noticed that some of the other comps that I was looking at this price point have the updated kitchen. Yours doesn't have that kitchen. Is there something else that you guys did to get to that price point? Because I just want to make sure that I'm not offending your seller when I submit you 75,000 under asking price, whatever it may be. Just be aware of what you're doing, asking those questions, not trying to be offensive in that way, but just more of like, help me out. I want to help me help you get to that higher price
Yeah, so.
point. Do we are we from the Facebook or something?
I don't know. This is like what we're waiting on right now. This is literally offering, it was 445, 476. All these things, I mean, like, he just wrote back, he's like, you're 7. Like, are we in March, April still? Like, what else can you do?
Yep.
That's all you can do, right?
That's all you can do.
Oh.
You did it right.
That's depressing, I'm like, everything you're doing, but.
Yeah.
She's great to go for the inspection.
Is there
Talking about the
given visual, what are your buyers? Thoughts about
We're just ready to
before I go there?
Okay, how are we talking? This is what they do.
If you're able to get this 20% down, how they do it? So,
Okay, so we're close.
are they able to reconsider their? I guess the question I'm trying to get to is if there'd be a way to restructure the finance, pick up a little 20% and bring the price up.
You were on the seller side or the buyer side?
On the seller side.
You want the buyer to come up in price?
Yeah.
The way they structure the loan is up to the lender. And so if, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to the conversation earlier, but it was, why are you trying to submit the offer?
So we met when you had asked earlier, what my response was to why it was 285. May not be aware that the roof is completely new. We have a new water heater. We have a new.
Yep.
And that's why we're asking for that price. Yes, obviously, the kitchen isn't as updated as other comps that are in the neighborhood, but if you look at where people bring the money, this is where.
Yeah. All I would say is that we've done a lot of major, I don't want to say renovations. We've taken care of a lot of issues of the house when it comes to a roof leak or a broken water heater, whatever. A lot of the times, I probably wouldn't say that on the call. I would put that in the MLS as a remark, saying new roof, new water heater, new furnace, go through that. And then if we're still dealing with an agent calling you on your overpriced, bring me your highest and best. Just bring me your highest and best, whatever it may be.
Is your response to that? Bring your highest and best offer.
I say that for at least one or two times in the conversation, almost every time, just to throw it out there. I want to mentally be putting it into that as an agent. I want the highest and best offer. When it is just one offer on the table, it is a lot harder to fight over a lowball offer. If I have another offer in hand, it's so much easier to put it back on this other one, going, I understand that the kitchen isn't updated, but I need you to understand, if you want to compete for this offer, I have another one in hand, and they're not fighting me over the kitchen upgrade or whatever it may be. Because if I can say, there's competition, highest and best, please, whatever it may be, don't worry about the kitchen upgrade. And that's a thing that you can do. Just be very, I'll say this to the group, just be very careful when it comes to saying you have another offer when you don't have another offer, because that could scare somebody away. If it's been on the market for 3 weeks, and then you all of a sudden say, oh, I've got another offer in hand. It's just like, do you? Do you? It really comes down to, it depends on the situation, but if it really is a bad kitchen, most of the time, the upgrades that you mentioned, the roof, the furnace, the water heater, it doesn't take a price from here to here. If all of the comps are coming in here, it's going to bring it from there to where the comp is. And if they've got an upgraded kitchen or something else on top of that, you're not really going to that price. You're going to be coming up to where the house should be. You shouldn't be selling a house with a leaking roof and a broken water heater. That's more detracting from the value than it is attracting. So saying you've got a new roof, new water heater is great, but unless it's like
That should be something that should be maintained.
exactly.
Expectation.
Exactly.
That's our baseline.
Exactly. You are going to get a higher offer because of upgraded bathrooms, upgraded kitchens, a nice landscape. Those kind of things are just going to make your house appreciate. But then you're going to get hit with the inspection when you've got a bad furnace or a bad water heater, whatever it may be. Those are inspection items. And maybe that's probably the best way to do it, is saying, what you're asking me is inspection item questions. Let's deal with that when we go to the inspection. Submit me your highest and best offer first.
I can do it.
Sometimes you just gotta spit fire it around to go for something that sticks. A lot of it's just fake it till you make it, because you've never had that conversation before. You're never gonna get asked that question the same way. It's just like, what can I say that's not going to divulge too much information about my seller? Not going to promise that I'm going to do something, because if I promise a home warranty or something like that, all of a sudden I'm tied to buying a home warranty. So just like I said, tread carefully, give as much information as you want or as you can, but not too much. Sometimes as a listing agent, your job is just to get them off the phone as they submit the offer.
Gotcha.
And once again, you are busy as a listing agent. You're the 5th person I've talked to today. whatever it may be, just because if you can drive the demand, that offers a little higher and higher. All right, I feel our conversations are dwindling, so let's bring it back.
Sure.
Any ahas? Anybody learn anything from this?
I just wanted to make more.
It's all right.
Better form up the CNA.
Good. Good. All right, you guys all ready? Huh? All right, let's bring it back. So when it comes to the checklist, make sure that you're reviewing it, presenting it. As far as the buyer's concerned, you've already presented it. Make sure you're getting it sold. Make sure that you're talking to your seller about everything that's going on in that contract, because that's going to be the make or break point. When you are talking to that other agent, just please don't overshare and don't promise anything. I was just saying to these guys, if you say, yeah, the hot water heater's broken, the seller might be willing to do a home warranty. If you mention it, all of a sudden your seller's gonna be held to doing a warranty. If your seller has to talk to you about it, you're buying a warranty. So just be careful about what you say. Don't overshare, and when in doubt, just shut up. Any questions? Any other ha-has from the exercise we just did? Okay.
Scripting is critical.
Scripting is critical. Knowing what to say and how to say it. So as far as the seller is concerned, you can only counter one offer at a time. I just want to throw that out there. Only one offer at a time. So if you've got 5 or 6 offers in hand, you're picking the best one you think of, you can, and you're negotiating from there. Very rarely is an offer perfect. So don't worry about a counter offer. The cool thing I like about counter offers and multiple offers is it's the acceptance deadline on those contracts all of a sudden means nothing to me. If I listed the house on a Wednesday, no showings till Friday, we're going to review all offers on Sunday. We'll probably accept something by Monday. I'll probably put that in the MLS. I didn't put anything about time. I didn't put anything. Monday at noon, I'm going to be accepting this offer, because if it's 12:01, people are starting blowing up my phone. So if I listed it on a Friday, Saturday, someone comes in with an offer, maybe 1,000 over, whatever it may be, but a quick acceptance deadline. I need to know tomorrow, 9 a.m. All of a sudden, when I have multiple offers on the table, that time means nothing to me. If they want to go out and submit another offer somewhere else, let them. However, if they want to keep an offer on this property, we're accepting offers on Monday. Do you want to stick around? Do you want to go somewhere else? I asked that agent flat out. You put a date in here that's not going to be accepted, and I'll blame it myself, or I'll blame my seller. I like to blame everybody. I'm busy, and I don't have time to review your contract. I've got 5 other offers in hand, and I haven't reviewed those contracts either. I'm going to get back to you on Monday. Plain and simple. I am so sick and tired. This is just my personal gripe. I'm so sick and tired of working 24/7 on Saturday and Sunday, and then have nothing to do the rest of the week. So if I need to get back to you on Monday, I'm sorry, I'm out with my family this weekend. I know I listed a property on Friday and we're going to accept it, but we're accepting it on the next business day. Don't let a buyer's agent bully you on the listing side. However, on the buyer side, sometimes if you're coming in with a hot offer, 10,000 over asking price, 10,000 appraisal gap, I will throw that on there. We're accepting, we need to go to another property by tomorrow. If you can't get this to us, let me know, because that other agent said they're going to be able to get back to me. That's why it's so hard to do both of these the same day, because the buyer side is totally different than the seller side. The buyer, I want to get them under contract as quick as I can, because I need to get another offer on, because we saw another property that's just beautiful. On the seller side, it's just like, I'm pumping the brakes because I have to review everything. I have to put them all in a multiple offer spreadsheet. It takes me time to review these offers, and you giving me a 5-hour turnaround time, it's not going to happen. So being real with the other agent, letting them know that you're a professional too, it will help you in this whole thing. And it also makes it a lot easier for you to skip that acceptance deadline. I'll get back to you on Monday, whatever it may be. So that is at least this market. If this was 10, 15 years ago, totally different market, totally different experience. When things shift, our business shifts. So just be understanding what I'm teaching you today may not be the best option. When it comes to responding to an offer, it's so like hit or miss on what you're talking about. Are you just accepting it? Are you countering it? What are you countering? Did they come in with something crazy in the additional provisions or something like that? I'm not going to make you guys a role play through just making stuff up, but just know accepting the offer, countering the offer is the same type of negotiating. You just want to make sure that you are getting out as much of the what ifs, what could go wrong out of it now. So they sent you an offer with a 30-day post-closing occupant. I'm sorry, but they're offering a 30-day post-close, but they did not provide the post-closing occupancy. I'll fill that out and I'll send it back to them. Free rent, no security deposit, buyer pays everything. Because they didn't send it to me. If I'm having to fill it out, I'm gonna fill it the way my seller should. If they want to negotiate that differently, let's talk. But most of the time, if I need a post-closing, I want the lender letter. I want the offer perfect before they send it to me, just so that I'm not having to redo it. So just make sure on the buyer side that you're trying to wrap up as much as you can. And on the seller side, you are muscling up without looking like a bully. You've probably all made calls to other listing agents that are in this to be jerks. Don't be the jerk. Get more bees with honey than vinegar, but also respect your time more than anybody. Because if you get burned out from this business, this is where you get burned out. Don't let it eat you alive. Okay. So that's my whole little spiel. I'm supposed to make you all sit through and cold call for 30 minutes and then give me more your ahas on that. If you want scripts, look in the Ignite script book. There are 70 something pages on nothing but scripts, buyer objections, seller objections. Actually, that's a good one. What's a good buyer objection? Why would a buyer not want to write an offer? They like the house. They want to sleep on it. What do you say?
They are like us doing the offers.
Competition. Can't sleep on it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can sleep on it, but might not be there when you wake up.
If you like it enough, why not put an offer?
I mean, I
And
always,
if we get, a couple days in, just like you were about, we can do that, but it's best to put in an offer if you're really serious about it. I know it's not too big.
So
I always go back to their one to me, so I was just like, this property has to better, it's updated, it has everything you've been looking for and more. So what's holding you up from submitting an offer? Has your mindset changed? And then, oh, you're right, like, oh, I always go back to when we met, this is what you said that you were looking for, and this property has that, so what's the hope?
awesome. Yeah. Knowing the buyer's top five I must have, and then top five I'd like to have, but I'm willing to settle without. Having that knowledge is gold for you, because this checks all 5 of the must-haves and 3 of the like to have. Why aren't you, why aren't we doing this? Once again, this may not be there tomorrow. Flat out, you can terminate if you get accepted tomorrow. You can't submit an offer once under contract. Get that out of the way right away. What about if they want to put in repairs? They want you to replace the furnace. They want you to put that in the contract. What do you say to that?
Well, so I would actually leverage the state of the market for both the previous question and this one specifically.
Yeah.
Just, I understand that that's something that they would want, but realistically, the state of the market is, and it's going to be a tough ask.
Yeah.
So unless, other factors might sweeten the offer, chances are going to be that because of those items, our offer has less of a chance there. So.
Okay. Cool. What about like a leaking roof or something like that? That would be a big issue, and the buyer wants you to put, I want a new roof on the contract. What would you say?
Can you say, like, let's write it out, let's get it accepted first, and then we'll talk about that, and then negotiate at the inspection.
Yep, exactly. What you were talking about is an inspection item. We have a specific date in this contract to just bring up the inspection items. Let's hold on, wait for the inspection. and we'll submit the list of things that we want replaced then. The biggest mistake people will make is they waive the inspection entirely.
It's like not smart for you.
Oh, it freaks me out. What if something happens? We had a new build, like the person built it a year ago and then was reselling it. And they just said, because it's new, we want you to waive the inspection. It's like, no, kick rocks. I don't know your inspection when you had it. I don't know who did it or how they did it. We're gonna get our own inspection. Make sure you do that.
I just had a really tough, trying to terminate a contract last week on the buyer side. It was finding home in a 300 price point is so hard. It was a 2-bed, 2-bath listed for 275 condo. We got it for 290 and go through inspection. And there's a handful of issues. Both of the girls' parents were there. Everyone's like opinionated and going crazy. And they're like, we want this fixed and this. I was like, let me talk to the listing agent, who owned the place. Talk to him, he's like, I'll give you, because he worked 15 over, I'll give you a $10,000 credit, seller concession, and fix everything on your list. And my buyers walked away. And I was like, it's great. Like, I mean, it's their prerogative, but it's such a tough market, so I don't know what I could have done better, but I just,
It depends.
yeah,
If they were willing to offer 10 grand and there's a $30,000 issue,
there it was.
kick rocks. However, if they're offering 10 grand and it's all gonna get fixed,
Yeah.
having that
I know.
that conversation going, I need you to understand as my buyer, this is a good deal.
Right.
This
What
is
would
one
you
of those
say,
ones
like,
I would probably suggest.
Because I think like the big thing was like so many paying people that weren't even parts of the contract. Like, how do you manage that?
Squashing that out in the very beginning at the buyer presentation. So much of the problems that you guys are going to encounter are going to be solved because of the buyer presentation or the listing presentation. My buyer and seller presentations are on lock. That's the one thing. If you all take bold, that's the one thing they're going to tell you to do. Know your buyer presentation and your seller presentation. And not only that, understand why you say it and when you say it. Because when I'm going through my seller presentation, part of what I say is, are you two the only ones buying this home? Oh, you're a first-time home buyer and your dad lives here and he really wants to be involved. Understand that your dad's a professional in whatever industry he is. I am the real estate agent. You found me to help you through this process. And if we can't develop that trust, what are we doing here? I'd have done that in the beginning because I've had so many where I'd show a house and then they want to come back later because the parents want to see it before they write the offer. Let's wait a day or two so my dad can come out and see the property. I'm not under contract with your dad. I'm under contract with you. And we have seen 5 other homes and this is the best one now. Let's write an offer. And if your dad wants to come out during the inspection, he can come out. And if he doesn't like it, then we can always terminate for any reason. Now, I talked about this at the beginning of the class, but some people just showed up. What do you say to a buyer when they want to lowball a new house that's on the market? House is just listed. I want to go in 25,000 under just to see what happens.
I mean, you have, like you said, you have to address that in the buyer presentation. Because if you just take people out without telling them how the market is, you're kind of just wasting your time.
Yep.
Because that won't happen, so.
Anytime I'm in a listing with my buyer, every single time they ask me, what do you think of this value? This is listed at 230. What do you think of it? And I always deflect. I see a bunch of these houses every day. I don't know what house sold down the street yesterday. So before we dive into money, I want to do a full market analysis on this home. And so I go home, I'll do a CMA, I'll pull up and say, all right, it's listed at 230. It's probably listed between 220 and 240. I think they did a good job valuing, or high or low, whatever it may be. I would advise you to do X. Never just give them a number when you're showing the home because nobody knows what you're doing. And unless you did a market analysis on every one of the homes that you're about to do, but you shouldn't be wasting your time. So I always go through and say, I'll talk to you about the value of the home and I have a chance to do my research. And if they still want to try to lowball, I go into what I was talking about earlier. If it's been under a week, plan on paying over asking price. If you're hitting that 2-week mark, you might be able to go at asking price or below. If it's been on the market for 2 weeks to a month or beyond, negotiate. What's wrong with the home? Why is it still on the market? Cool. Any questions? Anything that came up that you all have? Oh, wait, Lennon asked a question. Lennon said, talk more about closing costs and who typically pays what. Lennon, that is completely a negotiable thing. When you're going through, I'm sorry, I got to cheat because I don't remember the number. When I'm going through this portion of the contract, who pays what? It's a crapshoot. Most of the time, a buyer will pay the appraisal. Whoever selects the title company pays. Buyer selects, buyer pays. Seller selects, seller pays. Survey, it's up to you guys if you want to make a buyer pay for a survey. If it's a new build, a new community, maybe. If not, just tread lightly. Ask your client what you want to do. Due diligence, just be very careful about what you're putting in there. The rest of these fees, there is no standard. Buyer and seller typically will split the title closing fee. And then it's up to you. Typically, I'll do what this person did. Status letter, buyer pay, I'm sorry. Status letter, seller pays, record change fees, and then water, just make the seller pay. But those are the fees that you would really be covering, and most of that, like I said, it's more of a crapshoot than anything. Just do what's best, do what you think is right. You should be fine. If there is a huge HOA, so you're buying a condo in the Spire or the Glass House, just know the status letter and record change fees can be very expensive. A couple $100, a couple $1,000. So just be very, very careful about buyer paying everything or seller paying everything. If you don't know the answer, ask the agent, because that's a great question saying, hey, I've seen properties in the past where it's really high HOA fees. Have you looked into this? Do you know anything about how much it costs for that? 99% of the time, the agent's gonna have no idea. Send me something. And in that case, we'll just check seller pays or buyer and seller will split those costs. Just try to care. Yes.
As a listing agent right now, how often are you seeing the title insurance buyer selects, buyer pays? And if that is the case, is it usually like, as a buyer's agent, you would recommend to go with a company that the listing agent has in yours?
So I've actually had a couple of those offers come in, and I like it, to be honest with you. If the buyers, just to repeat it for those who didn't hear, but I put First American Title as the listing agent, saying that's where it's going to, and then the buyer submits an offer saying buyer selects title, buyer pays for title, and then in the contract they put First American Title. It's a good option. It's going to cost your buyer $1,200 or $1,500, but if they're willing to offer 10 grand over asking price, that's a small chunk of change, and they may not have to do that huge appraisal gap or whatever it may be. It's a good option. It's a clever way to structure a contract, to give the listing agent the feeling of being in power anyway, because that's the whole thing that these listing agents like, my title, it's that title rep bought me lunch, whatever it may be, whatever. So just, yeah. Good, a great question. All right, any other questions?
Weird scenario.
Yeah.
We can do it.
Throw it out there.
It's a really, I told them here, but like, it's been stressing me out since it's so we have a house with a septic tank. We couldn't find a septic tank anywhere on Friday. So the septic guy was like, I'll come back on Sunday and dig it up. He comes back with only a digging thing. That's all he was gonna do is dig it up. And he was going back today to take out whatever. And so my buyers wanted to know where it is. I was at an open house, so I couldn't get there. Called me, like, I'm on my way, I'm still on my open house. Go ahead, the buyers go, the listing agent knows, we're going to be there on Sunday. And then I'm on my way, and I'm gonna 10 minutes away. The septic guy was like, oh, everything is good. We left, the buyers are still there, so some buyers were like, oh yeah, can you still come by? And so I'm like, okay, I'll come by. And then when I'm driving, the listing agent starts texting me and calling me that my buyers threw box screen in the trash. And I'm like, I don't think so, but let me call them. And they're like, and then I called the septic guy and everyone's like, that box screen was in the trash. We went in the trash to look for something to poke the ground with. And so the neighbors called the owner to say that there was someone dumpster diving. And so then I show up to the house, the buyers are there, they're like, can you look at this 1 bedroom? And I'm like, okay, let's look at, that was my mistake.
You made a couple mistakes, but it's okay.
And I said, okay, let's look at the bedroom. While we're looking at the bedroom, the owner and the listing agent show up and they start yelling and screaming, Victoria! And I was like, my name's Karen. So I'm like, who the hell is Victoria? I was like, why are you guys all screaming? Like, what's going on? And they're like, who are you? And I'm like, did you not see someone's out there dumpster diving? And then I go, no, what do you mean? And then I realized that it was the buyer knows about trash cans and that they have to be even out. So he understands that the seller's probably looking out for the septic guy moved everything and uneven the trash. So he's in there trying to even out the trash to like solve the problem. And now they're accusing him of dumpster diving because they think that he's just some random guy off the street. And then he comes up and I'm like, it's your buyers, like that you're screaming at, that you're accusing of dumpster diving and stuff. And so then she goes, how about you guys just leave? And then I got on that because we were already in it. And how about we cancel this contract? But now I'm like, no.
Never jump to that. All right, I don't want to just say you did a bunch of stuff wrong, but I'm going to tell you what you could have done to make it a little better.
Yeah.
Cancel your open house. Have somebody else do an open house for you. If you are going to have anything going on when your clients are at the property, you should be there. And you should be at the inspection the entire time the inspector's there. You should be there the entire time. Anytime a buyer wants to just pop by. Because then you can turn around and say, this is exactly what happened. I made this judgment call. Because when you're the one there, you are the one in charge. Not the buyer, not the inspector, not the septic guy. You're the one in charge. So that if somebody's dumpster diving and the neighbors come out, you can then just wave at the neighbors, go, hey, I'm the realtor here. This is what's going on. That would have eliminated a ton of your issues. The second thing, now I don't know if you said this to the agent or not, but you were there to look at the exterior of the property, and then the buyers wanted to go to the interior of the property. If you did not disclose that to the seller, you should not go into the property.
Yeah.
You should call the agent and go, while we're here, we want to look at this, and then smooth that out. Whenever it comes to somebody else's property, treat it as if it's not your own. There were a time that I got a gun pulled on me when I was showing the property. We showed up, I put it in the MLS. The seller never coordinated it. I'm sorry, the agent never coordinated with the seller. So the seller was home. He comes in thinking someone's about to break into his home. Communication will solve every problem that we have. And most of the time when we get in trouble, when sellers start yelling or the other party starts getting upset, it's because we didn't communicate it the way we should have. And so whenever you send anybody to the property, whether it be just a quick pop by or whatever, I'm going to be there with you at all times, just because you never know what's going to happen. And it's so much better for you to go, this was the issue, and this is what we did, and this is how we got to that. Because it doesn't seem like you did anything wrong, but you weren't there to tell the other agent, it's they did this and they did this, and that's what they did. If you could say we did this, everything would have been fine.
Yeah, so she showed, her mom is the seller. And so the mom and her showed up, and then I was like, well, who are you?
Yeah.
She's like, I'm the listing agent. And then the listing agent didn't say a word at all. And it's just her mom yelling at my buyers, and so then I have to stop it. We can talk this out, and she's not willing to just talk it out.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, everybody on Zoom that can't hear, but long story short, she didn't show up to a inspection with the septic tank person. Yeah. However, now I don't know what's beeping. It's one of those hard knock lessons that you learned.
Yeah. My license now.
No, my very first transaction, I got taken to mediation twice. Most agents will go their entire career without ever going to mediation. I went twice my very first one.
And you didn't quit. That's good.
Didn't quit.
Was that for earnest money or for?
First time was because, and it was an earnest money dispute. Buyer backed out and he wanted to keep the earnest money. Second time he tried suing me because I didn't get him enough money for his listing. I listed it for 100,000. We sold it for 180, and he tried suing me because of it. Made him 80 grand more, and he was upset about it. Document everything. I cannot stress that enough. You have a conversation with your buyer or seller. I just want to follow up in written communication. We discuss this, whatever it is, even if it's a quick chat or a quick text. If something's going on, make sure you're documented, because the amount of times an attorney will come back at you going, prove it. You can't just say I had a phone call. We talked about this, you remember? 6 months go by, you're not gonna remember that conversation. Follow up with an email, follow up with a quick text, because that's what's gonna save you from getting sued. And you never know when a transaction is gonna go wrong until it's too late. So we communicate, everything right. Cool. Any other questions? I appreciate you all for coming. It's a lot more fun when people show up to classes. Zoom, I do appreciate you all for participating too. I hope you all have a great day. If you need anything, don't hesitate. Reach out to your ALC if you want a different class. If you guys want anything, we're here to help. Yeah, have a good one.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, good seeing you. Well, good seeing your square.
I do have a question for you.